What's up guys, it's me Drew, and welcome to Social Distance Cinema Discussion. If you're new to the channel, every week we do a video breakdown on a movie that is voted on by you guys. So if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, why don't you head down below and give me a subscribe. Really helps the channel out. This week, to kick off Women's History Month, we watched Nomadland, a film by Chloe Zhao. Nomadland is Zhao's third feature-length film, right behind Songs My Brother Taught Me, which is sitting pretty at a 94 on Rotten Tomatoes, and The Rider, which is sitting at a 97. I don't like to assign so much value into what random internet dipshits think about movies, but it's still kind of impressive that all of her feature-length films have gotten above a 90 in our world of armchair critics. Nomadland deserves some praise if for nothing else than for its bold attempts at capturing reality. It's not often we get a film like this one, and even though this style has been around since the earliest days of cinema, it's hardly ever used. Nomadland is a docufiction, which is a genre that attempts to capture reality using fictional scenarios. Apparently, the nomad lifestyle is a very real subculture in the United States. Nomadland interweaves real-life interviews with nomads with the story of Fern in order to bring you along for the ride. Pun intended. I'm curious, before this movie, did you guys even know that the nomad lifestyle was a thing? Because I didn't. So let me know in the comments if you're smarter than me. Something I really dig about the film is that you can really feel Zhao's empathy towards the characters. There's really nice close-ups, and she kind of just lets them say whatever they want to say about their situation and what led them to be nomads. Zhao uses sweeping wide shots and environment landscapes to engross you in that world. One scene in particular that Zhao highlighted in a video, which you can find down below, is this scene where Fern walks through a camp of nomads. Throughout this time, there seems to be always something in the frame for the audience to look at. Did you notice that most of the landscape shots or important dialogue scenes took place at golden hour or dusk? This time of day is chosen frequently for movies that are going to incorporate natural light, for really a ton of reasons. For one, it's easier to balance the exposure of the image. In filmmaking, exposure is just the amount of light that reaches the sensor or the film on your camera. Light bounces off different objects in different ways, and this was shot in the desert. If this were shot in the middle of the day, the areas of the highest exposure would have been the sky and the sand, because they are the most bright. If you adjust the camera settings to reduce the incoming light from those areas, suddenly the light bouncing off the face of your character or actor might be too dark. Even the most high-end and expensive cameras can have trouble balancing that much dynamic range. When the sun is this low, it casts everything on the ground into a nice even shadow, and the sky, while still lit, is much darker and therefore easier to expose along with the faces of your actors. The sun's position in the sky also allows you access to a number of lighting techniques that you really couldn't get anywhere else during the day. If we look at some of the more interesting dialogue scenes, take a look at where the sun is hitting the face of the subject. This is sort of a mix between rim lighting and Rembrandt lighting. Rim lighting is used to separate your subjects from the background while casting most of the image in a shadow. To put it basically, Rembrandt lighting is where you illuminate half of a subject's face. It's most often used in dramatic dialogue scenes. Where the sun at high noon, you really couldn't get access to that. And really, it's best not to think too hard about it. The main reason they shoot during this period of time is because it looks nicer. The sky has nice orange and blue tones, and it casts everything into a nice, even, good-looking image. Scenes like this become all the more impressive when you realize just how little time you have to shoot while the sun is in this picture-perfect position. The cinematographer, a guy by the name of Joshua James Richards, planned out the optimal times when the sun would be in this position months in advance. Depending on the season, which is another key factor of this film, you've got about 5 to 15 minutes to shoot a scene during this time period. Chloe Zhao just shows off by doing one takes, where if one thing is up, then the whole scene is gone, and they have to wait until the next day to shoot it again. Now that's ballsy filmmaking. I say it all the time, but I'll say it again. Every decision in your film should be well thought out and intentional. So I've got a question for you, and feel free to answer it in the comments. Why did Chloe Zhao decide to make the protagonist a woman in this movie? Could it have been told through the lens of a man? As we watch the rest of the movies during Women's History Month, I want you to keep this question in mind. There's tons of movies that have a strong female protagonist, but neglect to depict femininity or real-life experiences for a woman. Femininity, that's a hard word to say. In a word, much of the time, female protagonists display androgynous characteristics. While that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's a good idea to ask ourselves what the point of having a woman protagonist is if you're not going to tell a woman's story. I'd argue that stories with a woman protagonist that tell a woman's story through a woman's point of view are more impactful. In my view, Nomadland could only have been told through the point of view of a woman, and here's why. Throughout the movie, we're given subtle hints that Fern has always had an air of independence about her. We know that she's impulsive, but also craves new experiences.
I can't live here. I can't live in this room. Thank you, but I can't.
I know we're not as interesting as the people you meet out there.
That's not what I'm talking about.
No, that's what it is. It's always what's out there that's more interesting. You left home as soon as you could. You married Beau after just knowing him a few months. And then you moved to the middle of nowhere with him.
And to be real, that right there is more depth than most female characters get in movies today. But through her interactions with Dave, we can see how this is a uniquely feminist story. Dave's clearly a nice guy, but more than a few times he oversteps simply because he's looking for something more steady with Fern. It's hard for him to reconcile the fact that Fern is completely self-sufficient, and that she don't need no man. To be fair, a lot of the time he's just trying to pull her out of her comfort zone, which is admirable, but he's also falling into a negative patriarchal role that is commonplace in society, at least in the United States. He sees Fern as the missing puzzle piece to his romantic life, and even though she's not the best fit, he's trying to force her in anyway. There's some subtle things that he does that at a glance don't look too bad, but derive from a long history of women being under the dominion of men.
I was at the gas station, and I think it's better if you don't drive through the park when it's dark for your cigarettes, so I got you these.
What are they?
Licorice sticks.
I can't smoke licorice sticks, Dave.
I know, but you can chew on these, and you know, they help or curb the urge.
I'm not going to quit smoking, Dave.
Yeah, I know, but you should try these.
Dave clearly wants her to quit smoking, and when she sniffs right through that bullshit, he plays it off and expects she'll give it a shot anyway.
I can do it, thanks.
Where do you want this?
Go over there.
You don't have to shout.
Stay over there.
Fern rejects Dave's help moving stuff out of her car, but chivalry demands that he help. And he ends up breaking a ton of her shit. It's only out of sheer loneliness that Fern decides to go and visit Dave, and it's there that he makes his intentions clear.
You can stay.
Ooh, good, thanks. I need to do laundry.
You know, I meant stay longer, Fern. You know, I like being around you. I like being around you.
She's clearly so uncomfortable taking up the role that Dave's pushing on her. And it's not a mistake, too, that the male figure leaves and expects the female in the room to know how to handle a kid.
Don't be gone long, Dave.
For a time, she even starts to entertain the role that Dave is throwing at her. But ultimately, she runs. And that decision wasn't objectively right or wrong, but it was wholly her own. Her freedom to independently choose is more important than what she or anyone else imposes on her. Wow, how about that? Looks like that images of women in film class in college really paid off. Shout out to you, Flora. There seem to be a lot of you interested in the nomad lifestyle, so let me be the first to tell you that Bob Wells is a real guy. He has a YouTube channel dedicated to teaching the nomad lifestyle and how to survive. He's got a ton of really cool videos, so I linked his channel down below, and feel free to check it out and tell him Macular Media sent you. He'll have no idea what you're talking about. This film is easy for me to admire and respect. At times it felt slow, but ultimately those slow moments built the story better. I give it a 14 out of 15 lobsters. What did you guys think of Nomadland? Was it a uniquely feminine story, or could it have been told through the lens of a man? Do you have anything that adds to my thoughts? Let me know in the comments section, and while you're down there, give me a like and a subscribe, please. Next week we're doing representations of women as written by men, so that'll be fun. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully I'll see you next week.